Hold on to your hats, everyone, because we're diving into some major international drama today. It seems like the Houthi rebels in Yemen and the Venezuelan government have decided to poke the bear. And that bear is the United States Navy. This isn't just a small nudge. We're talking about serious provocations that could have massive consequences. Why are they doing this? What's their end game? And most importantly, how is the US responding to these bold moves? Stick around, because we're going to break down these two very different, yet equally tense, situations, and explore why challenging the world's most powerful navy might just be their biggest mistake yet. Let's start in the Red Sea. For months, the Houthi rebels, backed by Iran, have been launching a relentless campaign of attacks against commercial shipping. They claim it's in solidarity with Palestinians in Gaza, but their targets have been increasingly random, hitting ships from dozens of countries. They've used everything from anti-ship ballistic missiles to drone boats packed with explosives. This has turned one of the world's most critical shipping lanes into a high-risk zone. We're talking about the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, a choke point where a huge chunk of global trade passes through. Insurance costs have skyrocketed, and major shipping companies are rerouting their vessels all the way around Africa, adding weeks and millions of dollars to their journeys. This isn't just a regional problem, it's a global economic headache. In response, the United States didn't just sit back and watch. It launched Operation Prosperity Guardian, a multinational naval coalition to protect these vital sea lanes. Leading the charge is the USS Dwight D. Eisenhower Carrier Strike Group. This isn't just one ship, it's a floating fortress. We're talking about a Nimitz-class aircraft carrier with over 60 aircraft, guided missile cruisers like the USS Philippine Sea, and a squadron of destroyers including the USS Gravely and USS Mason. Their mission is clear: ensure freedom of navigation and deter Houthi aggression. But the Houthis didn't back down. They continued their attacks, directly challenging the US Navy and its allies. This led to a dramatic escalation. US and coalition warships have been in almost constant combat, shooting down Houthi drones and missiles day after day. The USS Carney, another destroyer in the region, has been particularly busy, intercepting numerous threats. The action isn't just defensive. The US and the UK have also carried out targeted airstrikes on Houthi positions inside Yemen, hitting radar sites, missile launchers, and command centers. The goal is to degrade the Houthis' ability to launch these attacks. But here's the thing: the Houthis have proven to be a surprisingly resilient and stubborn adversary. They are battle-hardened from years of civil war, and they are receiving sophisticated weaponry and intelligence from Iran. This makes them a persistent threat, not just some ragtag militia. The Houthis seem to be playing a long game. They are trying to portray themselves as champions of the anti-imperialist cause, rallying support both at home and across the region. Every skirmish with the US Navy is spun as a victory for their propaganda. They're betting that the United States and its allies will eventually grow tired of a costly, open-ended naval mission. However, they might be severely underestimating American resolve. The US sees this as a fundamental test of international law and freedom of the seas. Allowing a non-state actor to hold global commerce hostage is simply not an option. The US Navy has unparalleled power projection capabilities, and while they have acted with a degree of restraint so far, the potential for a much larger, more devastating response is always on the table. The Houthis are walking a very fine line. Now, let's pivot across the globe to the Caribbean, where another tense situation is brewing. This one involves Venezuela, under the leadership of Nicolas Maduro. For years, Venezuela has been in a state of political and economic crisis. But recently, Maduro has been trying to distract from his domestic problems by reviving a centuries-old territorial claim over the Essequibo region, which makes up about two-thirds of neighboring Guyana. This isn't just a line on a map. The region is incredibly rich in oil and natural resources. In fact, recent offshore discoveries have positioned Guyana to become one of the world's fastest-growing economies. Maduro sees this as a jackpot he can claim to boost his flagging regime. He even held a sham referendum where he claimed overwhelming public support for annexing Essequibo. This was followed by increasingly aggressive rhetoric and military posturing near the border. Naturally, this set off alarm bells not just in Guyana, but across the region and in Washington. Guyana has a very small military and is no match for Venezuela's armed forces. They immediately sought international support to deter a potential invasion. And who answered the call? The United States. In a clear show of support for Guyana, the U.S. Southern Command, or SOUTHCOM, announced it will be conducting joint military flight operations with the Guyana Defense Force. This was a direct message to Maduro. It wasn't about starting a conflict, but about preventing one. By flying military aircraft over Guyana, the U.S. was signaling its commitment to its partner and demonstrating its ability to project power right into Venezuela's backyard. The U.S. has deep interests in regional stability, and an invasion of Guyana would create a massive refugee crisis and destabilize the entire Caribbean. Furthermore, letting a dictator redraw borders by force would set a dangerous precedent. So the U.S. Navy and Air Force made their presence felt, reminding Maduro that any military adventure would come with serious risks. Venezuela's response was predictable defiance. They condemned the U.S. actions as a provocation and announced their own military exercises in the Eastern Caribbean, near the border with Guyana. They moved patrol boats and military hardware, trying to create a show of force. But let's be realistic. Pitting Venezuela's aging, largely Russian-made military equipment against the power of the U.S. Southern Command is a non-starter. SOUTHCOM's area of responsibility covers Central and South America and the Caribbean. They have access to the full might of the U.S. military, including carrier strike groups, advanced fighter jets, and a vast intelligence network. While Venezuela might make a lot of noise, their capacity to challenge the U.S. military in a direct confrontation is virtually zero. Maduro's saber-rattling is mostly for a domestic audience, a desperate attempt to look strong. So what do these two situations have in common? In both the Red Sea and the Caribbean, we see regional actors challenging the international order and, by extension, U.S. naval dominance. The Houthis are using asymmetric warfare to disrupt a global choke point, while Venezuela is threatening a smaller neighbor with conventional military force. Both believe they can get away with it. Both are making a huge miscalculation. They are provoking a power that has the capability to operate on multiple fronts simultaneously, and with overwhelming force. The U.S. Navy isn't just about aircraft carriers. It's about a global network of bases, allies, logistics, and technology that no other country can match. The ultimate power of the U.S. Navy isn't just in its hardware. It's in its ability to sustain operations anywhere in the world, indefinitely. The Eisenhower Strike Group can stay on station in the Red Sea for months, its sailors and pilots maintaining a high operational tempo. In the Caribbean, the U.S. can surge assets from bases in Florida and Puerto Rico in a matter of hours. This logistical and endurance advantage is something adversaries often underestimate. They might be able to land a lucky punch, like the Houthis damaging a commercial ship, but they cannot win a sustained fight. It's a battle of attrition they are guaranteed to lose. The big mistake both the Houthis and Venezuela are making is misinterpreting American foreign policy. They see the U.S. as hesitant to get bogged down in new conflicts, especially after Iraq and Afghanistan. And to some extent, that's true. The U.S. public and policymakers are wary of endless wars. But there is a difference between a full-scale ground invasion and enforcing freedom of navigation, or protecting a democratic partner from aggression. These are core principles of U.S. foreign policy backed by decades of precedent. When these principles are directly challenged, the U.S. has consistently shown it is willing to use its military power. By crossing these red lines, the Houthis and Venezuela are forcing Washington's hand. In conclusion, these provocations from the Houthis and Venezuela are incredibly risky gambles. They are testing the limits of American patience and power. While the U.S. has so far responded with calculated and relatively limited force, it possesses an arsenal of options that could dramatically escalate the situation. The message being sent by the deployment of U.S. naval assets is clear. There are consequences for disrupting global order. The ultimate power of the U.S. Navy lies not just in its firepower, but in its ability to be present, persistent, and decisive. Forcing a confrontation with such a force is, without a doubt, a very big mistake. What do you think? Is the U.S. response appropriate, or should it be doing more or less? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks so much for watching. If you found this breakdown interesting, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into global affairs and military strategy. We'll see you in the next one.